What's up, tribe? We are talking about a very important topic today, how to beat and break bad habits. And I, for one, am very, very excited about this show because this is something that I think is going to provide a lot of value to everybody. We had a really good chat about this during the morning workout, the at-home workout on YouTube. If you didn't catch that, go over there and check it out. We're going to be talking about that and answering some questions coming up. We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.
Hey everyone, in case we haven't met, my name's Rad Burmeister, that's my brother Yanni Burmeister. We're the co-founders of Unity Gym and the co-creators of the UMS, the Unified Movement System, where we turn driven people into superhumans. And the way we get such astonishing results with our members is that we've created a program that has a balance between strength and flexibility. If you want to know how we do that, download one of the free blueprints, the Strength Blueprint, Flexibility Blueprint, or Nutrition Blueprint. There's a link in the description of this video. And join the private Facebook group, UMS Movement Mastermind, where we go live to do these shows daily and answer your questions. And today we are talking about breaking bad habits. It's something that a lot of people struggle with, something that Yanni and I struggled with for many, many, many years. And it's something that we continue to refine every year and even on, a monthly and weekly basis. Recently, I've cut dairy out of my diet and Yanni's cut sugar and alcohol out of his diet. We both went alcohol free for the start of this year. I haven't broken that. Yanni had a little couple of weeks there where you were having a few wines.
My 40th birthday ruined it.
His 40th birthday, yeah. Yeah, it gets you. See, I went alcohol free. We both went alcohol free last year, and what ruined it for me was my wedding came up. So I've got my wedding, and so I'm coming up to the same point I got to last year, but I feel very confident that I'm not going to drink at all this year. I just feel so driven with it. Yeah. So that's what we're talking about today.
And before we dive into it, you'll notice a few changes if you're a regular on the show. We are currently, the main table is out the back, getting some work done on it. And because we're mounting all of the new microphones, we've got a whole bunch of Shure SM7B acoustic microphones. We've got the new boom arms coming and all that. So all of this sort of stuff that you see here is going to get leveled up. And we're very excited about that. But it's all getting mounted to the table and all the cables is getting mounted running through the table. So yeah, that's all happening. And then this is going to be sort of leveled up again. One more big level up. We've got more lighting coming and all sorts of stuff.
One more. I'm glad you didn't say the last one because it's never the last one.
No, of course not. We are committed to constantly leveling up. Quickly, guys, if you are catching the live stream, make sure you give us a shout out in the comments section. We want to know who you are, where you're watching from, and share with us what one thing you are going to try to do this week. Not try, you're going to either do it or not do it. But one thing that you would like to do this week to level up, it might be in relation to your diet, it might be in relation to your recovery, in relation to your exercise, in relation to your mindset, motivation, sleep, family, relationships, finances, whatever it is. Share it in the comments section. We'd love to know what you guys are doing. We're going to be talking about what we're doing, and we're going to be sharing some really good ways to break bad habits.
Yeah, look, let's just kickstart with what we were talking about on the show, on the workout, where a lot of people were commented and said that they got a lot out of it, which is how to break nutrition habits. It's one of the most common things. We had a couple of our good members chiming in saying that their diets just become debaucherous in this lockdown period, beers, carbs, bread, dairy, sugar, all the bad stuff. And it's so easy to do that. It's really, really easy to fall into bad habits. They just sort of cycle on each other. What I find, my pattern that I've identified is I eat something bad, like I'll have a pizza or I'll have a really debaucherous night where I'll have chocolate and ice cream and all the bad stuff. And then the next day I say to myself, well, I've already stuffed my diet. I'll just have another day and then I'll get started the next day. And that sometimes turns into months.
Yeah.
Where it's not every single day, but when I get to the weekend, I say, look, I've been doing this for a month, I'll start on Monday again. And that can go for so long.
Yeah.
And the opposite is the same. It's the process of it that happens, but the opposite is so hard to do.
Well, I'll explain to you why on a physiological level. Does anyone want to know why that is?
don't all put your hands up at once.
Crickets. The reason why is because of dopamine, because of the hormone in the body it is the reward hormone. It was basically we evolved to produce dopamine to survive. It's one of the main reasons why we evolved to be where we are now. It's a hormone that is very, like, our entire system is designed to be addicted to it. We crave it. We need it. We want it, and we can hack it. We can hack the system. Sugar hacks the system. Alcohol hacks the system. Most drugs hack the dopamine system, and unfortunately, they hack it in a big way. We get huge doses of dopamine when we have sugar, chocolate, things that we love. Not just sugar. I say sugar as a colloquial term. It's like gluten.
Gluten. It's just a general word for things that are bad for you.
It's bad. No, look, it's not sugar. When I say sugar, please understand that I'm talking about processed and refined foods that contain a very, very clever combination of sugar, fat, and salt. And that's what hacks the dopamine system. Sugar alone, and they've done a lot of research on this, you can't eat much sugar alone. Like, if you get a pile of sugar put in front of you, you wouldn't be able to finish it. Whereas if you got a pile of fucking beautifully engineered foods that contain sugars, fat, and salt in front of you, I guarantee you'd be able to eat it, like ice cream or like burgers and whatever else, fast foods. So it's very important that you understand that first. I don't want to vilify sugar in its simplicity, in its what do you call it?
Well, it's also because people start going down the path of, fruit is the devil because it's got sugar in it. And I know that there's people out there that think that, and there's people out there that have very strong arguments as to why fruit is the same as sugar. But there's many reasons why, like, people will say, if you juice an apple or whatever, you get fructose, and fair enough. But if you eat an apple, you get fiber. And when you have that natural sugar that hasn't been refined, that's balanced with fiber, it's that age-old argument of a glass. Not an age-old argument, actually. Maybe it's probably a new argument, but a glass of apple juice this big has about 8 apples in it.
Yeah.
And you go, and you have it, try to eat 8 apples.
Yeah, that's right.
I've barely been able to get through 2 apples in the past because your body just gets to a point where it goes, oh man, I've had enough apple,
Yeah, that's exactly right. So yeah, look, when I say sugar, I'm really, really bastardizing one little part of a bigger picture, and all the nutritionists would be.
Well, let's not hang up on sugar for too long.
Yep,
it's not.
Why did I digress from?
Well,
that?
I'll go in. I've got something to say there. So what Yanni was saying.
There's a way I can lock.
So
the back
when
of
you
it.
when you're looking at what you're talking about here, like alcohol, cigarettes, sugar, salt, fat, all these things that you can put in your body straight away, it gives you an immediate dopamine hit. So when you have a cigarette, if you're an addicted smoker, the second you have that first drag, you immediately get a dopamine hit from it. Same with if you're a sugar junkie, you put some chocolate in your mouth, you get an instant dopamine hit, or sip on a Coke or whatever. But the things that produce dopamine that come as a reward from effort, they take more time. Like, you can get a dopamine hit from a workout, but you've got to get up off your ass and do a workout.
That's what I was talking about. Yeah. Sorry, let me finish my thought before. The reason why what you said is so true, that it's so much harder to create good habits, is because the amount of dopamine produced naturally when we are meant to be rewarded for doing something, hard work, achieving a task, reaching a goal, it's a very small amount of dopamine in comparison to the amount of dopamine that's released when we have junk food, when we have alcohol,
and that
when
happens
we have drugs.
Instantaneously.
Yeah, and the body's not. It's not. We're not really designed in a way to deal with so much of these good hormones in one big hit, and that's why we become so addicted to the bad things and less likely to become addicted to the good things. Because it's like giving a crack junkie lots of crack or a little bit of crack. They're going to go for lots of crack every day of the week. We're crack junkies for dopamine, literally, and our bodies are hardwired to be like that.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's something that it goes back to what we were talking about a week or two ago when we were talking about this UMS 30-day challenge, where we're talking about acting proactively or reacting to what's going on. And if what you're doing is you're not aware of this stuff and you're just eating to give yourself that hit, and make no mistake, if you're eating junk food, if you're eating savory snacks, if you're eating chocolates, if you're drinking alcohol, if you're smoking, you are doing this. You are literally unconsciously just going for a dopamine hit and getting it the quickest way possible.
Yep.
And once you become aware of this and you start to look at your life and go, holy crap, look at all this stuff that I'm doing, to give myself that quick hit, to try to remove it, you actually realize how hard it is.
Yep.
Because people say things like, I'm not addicted to sugar. I don't need sugar. Go a week without it.
Yeah.
Don't have a single bit of sugar for a week and find out how addicted you are.
Yeah, that's right.
Same with alcohol. People say, I don't need to drink. And I said, well, every time I see you, you have 2 drinks. And then I come over to your place and you open a bottle of wine. Yeah, but I don't need to do it. I say, all right, well, don't do it then. Don't do it for a month.
Yeah.
Show me that you don't need to
Yeah.
drink. And man,
changes.
how many people actually do that, And how many people say, I'm going to give something up, and then a week later you ask them how they're going. Oh yeah, I had a couple of drinks on the weekend, and
Yeah.
So
Now-
that's you are far more addicted to these things than you are, and people don't really understand addiction either. Like addiction has this really, really negative negative connotation to it, because it is the root cause of a lot of evil in a lot of people's lives. But when you understand, like on the deeper level, where that addiction really it's to do with dopamine. It's to do with you can be addicted to, just like Yanni said before on the show, you can be addicted to sex, because sex can give you a dopamine hit. You can be addicted to exercise. People get addicted to exercise, which that's an example of a healthy addiction, where there's a lot of people out there that don't do any of these bad things, and people say that they're very, very extreme because they do CrossFit every day and then they go for a run every afternoon, and they won't come out and do anything socially. Well, I'd call that a really good addiction. Because they get addicted to that dopamine hit of the workout, and they're not eating shit foods and doing all this crap, but it is still an addiction.
Yeah.
They're still addicted to that dopamine hit that they get from the workout.
That's right. And people are affected by addictions on different levels. And so for some people, they won't really get it. They won't really understand. And for other people, the struggle is real, man,
And it takes a higher level of consciousness. You have to start to really... You have to have a really hard look at yourself when you want to start to beat these things. And this is why so few people actually beat addictions, break bad habits, because all the people do is this. They go, I'm gonna stop this. I'm going to stop this, and that's not enough. Like, to break a bad habit, there's 3 things to it. You have to recognize the trigger. You have to recognize what the habit is itself, the habit loop, and then you have to recognize the reward. So there's the 3 stages to it. And your job is, what people focus on is the habit. They say, I'm going to break the habit. I'm going to break the habit. So I don't want to smoke. I've got to stop smoking. I've got to stop smoking. I've got to stop smoking. What they've got to identify is the trigger.
Yep.
What's the trigger that
That
causes
makes you wanna go for
to
a
say,
cigarette.
I want to go for a cigarette? And then you have to change that to something else. And that's why Nicorette gum works well.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Yeah, exactly. So you're sort of giving a little bit of the picture there. First step is exactly right, what Rad said. Identify the trigger. What is at the moment that you decide or get the feeling of, I need the cigarette, or I need the alcohol, or I need the food, or whatever it is that you're battling with addiction.
That's what people are asking for. Yeah.
Then you need to you identify the trigger, and it can be a variety of things. It can be social environment. It can be stress. It can be a stress response. It can be a response to you feeling unfulfilled or depressed. So you feel down, you feel depressed, and you get triggered, and you go to the pantry cupboard and pull out the bag of cookies and smash them down. It can be fucking I noticed one of Kalicia's triggers was maths, Married at First Sight. At a year or so ago, it was like, had to have a block of chocolate with maths. The trigger, like, there is always a trigger there.
Before I was a father and I had more freedom in my life, my biggest trigger was playing video games. When I'd play video games, the ritual was that I would have a drink.
Yep.
And I'd have a beer, and as soon as that happened, all bets are off. And then as I got rid of that, I recognized my trigger for junk food was the weekend.
Yep.
When it was Friday night or Saturday night, I would tell myself, I've done a whole week without this stuff. It's my reward now.
Yep.
this is my trigger.
Yep.
And so it's your job. Your job. You have to identify the bad habit first. So you identify your junk food, but then when you recognize that, you can't say to yourself, "I'm going to give up drinking. I'm going to give up eating chocolate."
Yeah,
you have to
there's a
recognize
strategy.
the trigger.
Yeah.
And once you recognize the trigger, then you have to come up with a replacement habit.
Yeah.
You can't. The research shows that you can't actually get rid of a habit. You can only
You
replace
can't abolish a bad
it.
habit.
You can't abolish a
only
bad habit. You
replace
can only replace it with something else. So this is a strategy that I've used successfully, and maybe you can share on what's worked for you. But for me, when I've wanted to give up bad foods, I've identified my trigger first, and then I replace the bad food with a healthier food. So it's not a strategy to say I'm not going to eat chocolate. A strategy is to say when I recognize that I want chocolate, I won't have it in the cupboard. I'm not going to have it sitting there waiting for me.
Yeah, that's the first step.
Well, we'll get that to
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a sec. But you have, say, fruit or yogurt or something that you know is healthy in the fridge that you go to instead.
Yeah.
And that's what I've done. So when I got rid of dairy recently, I know this process really well now. So I as soon as I said I'm going to get rid of dairy, I immediately went, okay, what am I going to replace it with? I said I'm going to replace it with nuts this time.
Yeah.
I'll give myself nuts because they don't have sugar in it. It's a healthy snack. It's got a hell of a lot of calories in it, but I don't care about that. I'm exercising a lot at the moment, and it's worked really well for me.
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's the same as what I've done just recently too. I noticed everything. I mean, I did a month in Europe and we had a really, really bad diet in Europe, which was totally fine because we were on vacation and I just accepted
I wouldn't
just
go
going
to Europe on a diet.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
I'd want to enjoy
my
myself.
My only goal in Europe was that I wanted to exercise 3 out of every 7 days as a minimum, and then try and do 10,000 steps a day on top of that. And we did that and we succeeded really well with that. And which created I maintained that exercise habit, which meant that it wasn't as hard coming home to do it, And then, but all bets were off with food, and I put on about 8 kilos, and so that made it hard because I became quite heavily addicted to sugar again and junk food and croissants and all the beautiful things that you have when you're in Paris for a week and whatever else, and so. Coming back, I was all in, giving up alcohol, giving up junk food, and I was ready for that, and I replaced it with stuff. But then recently, my 40th birthday in March, and I just thought, bugger it. We were in lockdown. We had to cancel a big birthday party that we'd been planning for the last 6 months. And I thought I'm just going to have a couple of bottles of wine with Kalisha at home and enjoy myself. And yeah, then that turned into doing it for the next 3 weeks. We started off just getting 1 bottle of wine on Friday, and the trigger was the end of the week. Man, it's tough. We're in lockdown. For many of you, the trigger is lockdown right now. Like you're in lockdown and there's not much happening. And look for the point where you go, oh, this is it. What is it? What's the reason? What's playing out in your mind? And then, so what I identified was that the alcohol was a real problem, and that the alcohol was also leading to a lot of junk food, sugar, things like that. So we were getting chocolate, bars of chocolate. Then we had Easter, and it was just constantly compounding. One thing led to the other. And so my way, we identified that the weekend was the problem. Getting to Friday, we're exhausted with the kids at home. They'd come out of daycare, all of that sort of thing. It was just easier to get a bottle of wine and sort of self-medicate, and then that led to sort of blocks of chocolate and whatever else. So we replaced it with, I went and made sure that there was nothing in the house that could lead us astray.
Critical.
And removed everything. So we got no alcohol, we got no junk food.
If it's
and
there
then
and you're addicted, you're going to have it.
Yeah, that's right. Then I stocked the house with really good fruit. Really nice fresh fruit, stuff that I normally wouldn't even eat. Like we got pineapples and grapes and mandarins and bananas and whatever else. Like we eat lots and lots of different types of fruit.
Yep.
And so we doubled the amount of fruit that we were buying. So I've got nice sources of sugar there that are much more healthy.
Yep.
And
that's what we've
I
done.
just traded that out.
Yep.
So and I've done that successfully now for 2 weeks. And the first weekend was hard. The weekend before was quite difficult. I thought about alcohol quite a lot. I thought about wine quite a lot. I thought about chocolate quite a lot. And I even slipped up and we had some what do you call them? Hot cross buns, you know, which, you know, what I absolutely wouldn't do normally, but I sort of in my head said, oh, look, I've come a long way. That's a good meeting halfway point, you know. So on Sunday we had a few hot cross buns that were left over from from Easter. But this weekend I didn't even think about it. Didn't think about it. I ate a lot of fruit still, you know.
Yep.
But I didn't think once about getting junk food or alcohol. And, you know, now I'm going to go another step and I'm identifying, okay, where's some room for more improvement? I'm still eating a lot of bread. I've built this habit after going to Europe and eating a lot of pastries and bread in France. I'm eating a lot of like Lebanese bread and dipping it with my hummus for snacks and things like that. And I know that I want to level up. I'm training hard, and I need my body to be recovering well, and I need to reduce inflammatory foods and things like that. And so I want to make sure that I'm leveling up, and I want to get leaner. I still haven't lost the 8 kilos that I put on in Europe, you know. So I want to lose that body fat again and get down to a good, healthy, what I consider healthy, which is around 10-11% body fat, you know.
Yep. Yeah, and, you know, I know that we get, you know, some people chime in sometimes and say that, you know, our standards are much higher than the average person, and that's totally fine. You have to do you and we do us. We're not sitting here telling anybody how to live their lives, but one of the most common things that we have faced as personal trainers for 16, coming on 17 years in the industry is people want to lose weight, they want to get in better shape. This is what the industry thrives on. But they can't do it. And they can't do it because they can't give up their habits.
They're a slave to their habits.
So you have to either set your bar lower and accept that you're just going to achieve much more mediocre results, or if the bar's up here and you're falling short, you've got to understand that this becomes critical.
Yeah.
And what I've learned for myself personally is that I'm an all or nothing person. So the reason why there's a couple of reasons why I got rid of dairy. And mind you, before I got rid of dairy a week and a half ago now, I wasn't eating refined sugar. I wasn't drinking alcohol. I wasn't eating bread. I already had a diet that most people would call godly, you know.
Yeah.
But dairy was an addiction for me.
Yeah.
Dairy was my go-to thing. It was my, you know, oh my God, I feel like some yogurt and some muesli. And I was eating muesli with it as well, which is, you know, refined carbs, and I didn't want that. If you think muesli's a healthy choice, it's not.
Yeah.
It is still refined carbohydrate, and it's not whole food. And it's just marketed well. And I was eating cheeses and all this other stuff. And I just thought to myself, I was looking at my diet and I thought, man, if I got rid of dairy, my diet would be so good right now. It would be better than it ever has. And I thought, well, why am I letting this one last addiction rule me? And this is where Yanni and our minds are at, and why we're so obsessed with doing this stuff is, I know that Yanni shares my opinion on this. I'm 42 next month. Yanni just turned 40. We've done the hedonistic lifestyle. You know, we've got friends that say to us, oh, but that's not living, you know, if you're not going to enjoy a drink or you're not going to enjoy a this or that or whatever, that's not living. I just laugh at that. I think, well, that's an interesting viewpoint because I've done that. I've done that life where I just eat and drink whatever the hell I want, whatever hell I feel like. I know what that gives you. I know what you get out of life when you get that. And it's not what I want anymore. What I want now is like what I feel now when I get up on Monday morning. I felt amazing this morning. I felt so good. And I don't feel like that. I've experimented with having 2 drinks on a Friday night and nothing on Saturday and nothing on Sunday, and I still feel ordinary on Monday. I've experimented with having 1 glass of wine at night, 1 standard glass of wine. I still feel subpar the next day. And so I just made a decision that I want to be, Yanni and Richard and I have got massive fitness goals, strength, flexibility goals, business goals, life goals, family goals, relationship goals. And I want to be at peak performance. That's where I want to be. So that's why I'm doing this. So if we go back to it, if you're struggling to break a bad habit, then there's the first thing you've got to do is recognize you've got the bad habit and get rid of anything that's in the house that is it. You know, if it's let's talk about something that most people can relate to. It's biscuits or chocolate or ice cream. Get rid of it. It can't be in the house. The next thing you've got to do, and this is the hard part, is you've got to identify what the trigger is. So the next time you say, oh, I feel like some chocolate or some biscuits, you've got to stop in that moment and say, what's going on right now that's making me feel this, and really identify it. And that can take months. It took a while for us to identify our triggers, but once you know how to identify a trigger, it can happen really, really quickly. And then once you've identified the trigger, you've got to find something that you replace the habit with. So if we're talking about food, you've got to find something that's healthy, like what Yanni and I have said, replace it, have that in the cupboard, and then the next time you feel the trigger, you go to that food. You don't go to the shop and buy the thing that you wanted. And then the last thing that I'll say is, you've got to understand that it takes 30 days to break a habit, and I'll explain the process. The first 10 days is torture. It's like literally your skin is crawling. The second 10 days is described as hard, but not nearly as hard as the first 10 days. And the last 10 days is easy. The habit has actually been broken, research shows, after 21 days. The last 10 days is just to solidify what you've already done. The last 10 days is very, very easy.
That's barring any social pressure.
That's right.
External. That's if you lock yourself into isolation and just do it alone. Now,
that's right.
We've got a lot of really great interaction here, and Steve Cavanagh talked about something there that, should be shared. He says, I gave up alcohol on the 4th April 2001. I was a heavy drinker, not sure if alcoholic or not. You certainly were an alcoholic, brother, if you were drinking every day, which he says here. There's different levels of alcoholism. There's different levels of addiction, and you can be a high-functioning alcoholic, which I was, and you can, and it sounds like Steve was, and I was a high-functioning drug addict at one stage too, and I'll share that in a sec. Everyone, will get to your questions and comments in a sec. Roger, everyone, will go through them. And also Aidan Potts, who his question came through on email, I do want to address as well. So just bear with us, guys. Now, Steve's saying it took him a year. It was so hard to get over alcohol, and it took him a year. And the thing that was the hardest was being out and seeing friends drink. And that's what I'm talking about with social pressure. Social pressure brings a whole new element into breaking habits and breaking addictions. And that's why what we're dealing with right now is it presents a really amazing opportunity for a lot of us, because it's you versus you right now. There's no social pressure. You're not out with friends. You can't go out to the pub, And I know how you feel, Steve. When I gave up alcohol, properly, and drugs properly, I had to sever ties with most of my friends, literally, And for the first 3 months, I couldn't go out, couldn't be around people, because my trigger was my friends, my circle. Going out with my friends, having 2 beers, that was it. That was enough to hit the effort button, and then it would lead to cocaine, and it would lead to other drugs. Much hard, cocaine was probably my limit. I didn't ever become a heroin junkie or anything like that. I was lucky,
Never
but
shot up in your
never
eyeball?
shot up in my eyeball. No, never, never went that far. But I definitely got addicted to cocaine at one stage,
For sure.
and not like, I woke up in the morning and you're snorting lines, but I couldn't go out and get drunk without it leading to something else,
And so many people are like that.
And before that, it was recreational drugs like ecstasy. I could not go out and get drunk without ending up taking some other drug, and I always woke up the next day in remorse.
Yep.
Feeling
why
you
never
did I
wake up
do
the next
that,
day going, oh my God, I'm so happy I did that last night.
The first trigger was my friends. The second, and I'm not blaming them. It was completely on me. Half the time I was the instigator, but it was being in that environment that affected me, and then that triggered me.
You got the phone, Richard?
And then
calling for deliveries?
after that, it was like having a bit of alcohol. Now, so I feel you there, Steve. Carmine is saying gave up bread and pasta and grains 5 days a week and dairy 3 days a week. Cheese is tough. 7, as an Italian in the food industry, it's tough. No coffee or sugar either. Mindset is key. Absolutely. Lee Clemens is saying refined sugar. Now, Roger Talevsky saying, morning lads, can you let me know the title of the book on the table? Missed it at the start, and can you give us a run of your top 2 points? Okay, we've got 3 books on the table here. The first one was Extreme Ownership, that we challenged everyone to read at the very start of this challenge. Extreme Ownership is all about, as it sounds, taking extreme ownership of everything in your life. Every single thing in your life is your responsibility. And
By Jocko Willink and
Leif Babin. And that's a really great book because they talk about, an experience they had. Every chapter is a new lesson that they learnt. And they talk about how they learnt the lesson in leadership in the military and then how they applied that lesson after their experience in the military in everyday life and business. And it's so powerful, so powerful.
Amazing.
The second book that we challenged everyone to read, because we're 30 days, we're 4 weeks into the challenge now, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill.
This is the book that started this whole process for Yanni and me. It was the first book that we were recommended to read, and I'm reading it again now, probably for the, third or fourth time or something, because I'm just trying to be in sync with what everybody else is reading, and it's such a good read, and it's reminding me of so many things. This is actually, it's funny to read this because you realize the parallels between The Secret and this.
Yeah.
This is the book, if anybody's heard of The Secret, that Rhonda, what's her name? Rhonda Patrick?
It wasn't actually her that, I don't know. It was a guy.
So Jerry, what's her name? Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks were the ones that pioneered this law of attraction thing, and this Australian woman turned it into The Secret, this video. And this is the book that started it for Jerry Hicks. So there's parallels there, but it is definitely a lot more practical, and it has grounding to it because it comes from this author interviewing and spending time with the 500 most successful business owners and entrepreneurs in America in the 1930s that came out of the Great Depression with great wealth to find common traits between them. So this isn't some
and
person
then he summarises it down into 13 points.
Yeah, it's
13
really
like key points, and there's a couple in there that that I found really the power of mastermind, sexual transmutation were the two that really stuck with me quite a lot.
But you know what's funny? I'm just finishing the chapter on the power of desire, and on this is what really made me think of the parallels between The Secret and on, I can't remember exactly what it starts with an A. He calls it the law of, anyway, it's basically this concept of, you have to think first. You have to believe it in your mind for the events to come into reality. And I just thought about it. I thought, 15 years ago or so, we read this book and we had nothing of what we've got now.
Yeah.
We were a couple of personal trainers. And I remember...
Going nowhere, still addicted to drugs.
Yeah, still addicted to drugs. And I remember the process, how it started of doing exactly what we're teaching all of you now. It's going back so long now of creating these vision boards and believing these things, believing like our golden goose one day was that we'd have our own gym, that was like the big thing. Like imagine one day we'll own our own gym. And it all started with the lessons that we learnt in here.
Yeah.
And then the last book that we've got here, which we're actually now introducing for the first time. Most people won't have finished this one yet, so don't worry about it. You're not behind. We're only doing this for you, Roger, is The Power of Habit by Charles Duhigg, which is everything that we're talking about today.
Yeah.
It's all about the habit loop.
That's exactly right. So let's quickly just keep going through here. Lee Clements, years ago, replaced smoking with CrossFit, but leveled out now. In what respect did you level out? Man, I was watching The Fittest in Dubai on Netflix last night. It's a CrossFit doco about the competition in Dubai last year or the year before. Fuck, they're beasts. Anyway. Look, brother, that's essentially what got me into exercise was my addictions and my depression, and that's why I started exercising initially. And you'll find a lot of a lot of personal trainers go down that path too. Simon Morgan here saying, "Morning guys, this is a little off topic, but he wanted to say I'm loving the Waking Up app. Certainly not off topic because we're gonna just quickly recap the four challenges that we've set for everyone. But I'll share what Simon's saying here. I've made it to day 26 and it's now part of my daily morning routine. I've tried a couple of meditation apps in the past and this is definitely the best. That's what we found, exactly the same. It has really helped me stay sane after 7 weeks home isolation. Thanks for the challenge. Really appreciate what you guys are doing. Mate, look, honestly, the Waking Up app, and I've got the book Waking Up there by Sam Harris. I've got 3 of his books. All of them are fantastic. And there's so many books I'd like to recommend you guys do, but it's really important that we suggest books in the same sort of order that we learnt, because the process of the way we did it has brought us to where we are now, you know.
Yeah.
And I can't stress to you guys how powerful this is. You know, this whole situation, this whole lockdown, we've achieved so much in the past 7 weeks or 6 weeks, not only in our physical capabilities of leveling up our strength, our flexibility, how lean Rad is, those things, but the amount that we're getting done in our business. You know, we didn't for one day take this as a negative.
Yeah.
You know, we processed for a few hours how full on this is and how like I was about to swear, how bad it's going to be for the economy, how bad it's going to be, how dangerous it's going to be for people's livelihoods and life and health, and how many people are going to die from it. And that was really full on. And you know, I might have processed for 12 hours, and then it was like game on. How can we make the most of this situation? And we have worked extremely hard over the past 15 years to program ourselves. And you know, all of my mentors and all of the people that I've worked with over the last few years have done the same thing. I've watched them on social media just like absolutely taking this to another level, taking themselves, their businesses, that sort of thing. It is really, really powerful to be in this position and to have worked so hard to cultivate a mindset where you see only opportunity in obstacles, you know, and you know, it goes so far beyond just your health and just you and just what you can achieve personally. And it goes... It affects everyone, you know.
My first commitment, Monday to Friday, is at 7 a.m. when we do those live shows, and I get up at 4:30, maybe 4:20 sometimes, and I'm at the gym by 5 at the absolute latest. And I do that because I find that the morning is the most productive time of the day, and I don't care if my commitments don't start till 7. I want to make the most of the most productive time of the day. Yeah.
Justin Cordero is saying, read Think and Grow Rich on my first deployment. Great read. Justin, I'm pretty sure I recall you are in the American Army. Is that right? Let us know in the comments so I get that right.
What was that?
Looks like Navy by his picture.
Navy by his picture. Richie's saying,
Cool.
Thanks, brother. Thanks for your service. We just had our Anzac Day on the weekend. Saw Richie with his gongs and his suit on. Looked very good. Lee Clements, love how you guys are taking control of your lives. Joshua Charles Dawes, if you haven't heard of Dr. Joe Dispenza, definitely have heard of him. Highly recommend all of his books. He gets into the theoretical quantum physics and how they apply to the manifestation you're talking about. Check out a great podcast by my one of my previous mentors and a good friend of mine, Kerwin Ray. He's got a podcast called Unstoppable. He interviewed Joe just recently, and it was really, really good. Lee Clements, don't even consider a cigarette. Well done, Lee. Not smoking is my habit. Justin, yeah, Navy, awesome. Awesome. Yeah, that's a great way to level up when you're on deployment. I tell you what, because I know a lot of other people waste that time or opportunity, you know, doing silly shit like drinking and whatever else when they can. Guys, quickly, I want to finish on, because I did promise Aiden I would talk about this. Aiden sent me an email over the weekend. He's part of my Inner Circle email list. If you haven't, you got to subscribe to that.
Well, Aiden's part of our UMS online coaching.
He's part of our UMS online coaching program as well. Made a goal for myself to get 10% body fat by August 31st. Way to level up, brother. I'm currently at 16.5% body fat measured by Skinfold calipers. He says, I know that that's not the best, but better than nothing. There's no problem with that as long as you're consistent with it. I'm currently at 206.7 pounds, meaning by August 31st, I want to be at 193 pounds. I've downloaded MyFitnessPal and going to start my tracking of calorie and macros today. I was wondering, do you have a rough guideline of what that macro percentage should look like? He says, I currently do 16-8 fasting and use your super smoothies to break my fast. That's awesome. I work out in the morning and then we'll wait till 1 p.m. to start eating. My new commitment is to avoid desserts, sweets, breads, and alcohol. I'm implementing the principles from Think and Grow Rich and will be repeating my fat loss affirmations in the morning and night. Excited to make this happen. Any additional thought would be extremely helpful. Okay, first and foremost, please remember that when you alter body composition, it usually is best to do it at a with a combination of increases in muscle mass and decreases in fat mass, meaning that having the weight goal of hitting 193 pounds, I don't think is very relevant.
Yeah.
Because you don't know what your muscle mass is going to do. And, a lot of people will alter body composition really well and stay exactly the same weight.
Yeah, a body fat percentage is a really good goal.
Yeah, that's right.
Don't worry about weight.
Don't worry about the weight so much because you don't want to lose muscle. So that means you don't want to run it off just doing lots and lots of cardio, okay? You want to be putting on muscle mass if possible, and then that's going to change your weight because muscle mass is a lot heavier and denser than fat mass. 16/8 is fantastic. That's going to be really helping with things like autophagy. It also helps to sort of skip a meal and control calories. As far as macros go, brother, when I'm trying to lean up, and this is me personally, I'm not a dietitian or a nutritionist, and I've had some great success by manipulating macros, but we don't focus on it too heavily. What we tend to tell our tribe here is to use carbohydrate as a source of fuel only on days that you exercise. So if you exercise, then you can usually afford to eat carbohydrate because it will replenish. When you exercise, you deplete the glycogen stores in your muscles. And then when you eat carbohydrate after exercise, post-exercise, you just refuel the muscle, basically. But if you're not exercising, then that glycogen needs to go somewhere, and it tends to go, some of it gets processed by the liver, and the rest of it just gets stored in your fat cells. So what we tend to do is say, okay, use exercise as your measure. If you exercise, then you can afford carbohydrate. The simplest way to do it for everybody at home is to use the hand portion guide. A thumb of fat, a palm of meat, and a fist of carbs is essentially, a cupped hand of carbohydrate and 2 fists of vegetables. That's how I would say to do your meal. So if you cut your hand off there, put 2 fists on the plate, you can have that in veggies, like good quality veggies, broccoli, whatever. A cup full of mashed potato, rice, or whatever other legume you like to have. A thumb-sized dollop of butter or ghee or olive oil. Which would be a tablespoon of olive oil on your, or a tablespoon and a half of olive oil. And then, the size of your palm of good quality meat. That's the easiest way to do it. If you go into macros, if you want to go down that path, the best book that I've found is Lane Norton's book, Only If It Fits Your Macros. He's got another newer book on nutrition. He's a beast on macros, and I wouldn't even bother trying to tell you anything because you've got such great resources like that out there. Yeah. Rad and I and Richard don't measure our macros anymore because we've done that in the past and we have a general idea of how it all works, And what we've used in the past is the DEXA scan clinic that we use here in Sydney, Australia at Measure Up. Jared Mirkin, who is the body composition guru here, expert around here, he has a formula, and his macro splits are really, really accurate based on your DEXA scan, based on your fat mass and muscle mass. I'll leave it on this. It depends on your body type. If you're an ectomorph, an endomorph, or a mesomorph, your body processes carbohydrate and fat a little bit differently. It stores more efficiently or less efficiently. And so what I like to say is, it's kind of individual based on your body type. If you're a mesomorph, then you probably need higher protein, less carbohydrate. And if you're an ectomorph, tall and skinny, you probably need more carbohydrate.
Yeah, for sure.
That's pretty much it, yeah.
All right, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Hope you all got something out of that. We will see you tomorrow at 7 a.m. for the daily workout. Have a great day, everyone.
Great work.
Hey, thanks for watching that video. If you liked it, consider subscribing to our channel and make sure you click the notification bell so you know when our weekly videos are uploaded. Now, the best thing for you to do if you want to stay connected with us and get free online coaching is to join our private Facebook group. It's called the UMS Movement Mastermind, and we go live daily where we answer our members' questions. It's very interactive because you can post questions while we're live and we interact with you on the show. You can also upload videos or pictures of yourself with any movements, any stretches, strength training movements, calisthenics, weightlifting, anything that you're struggling with, and we'll critique you, give you feedback, let you know how you can get better. It's a really valuable resource. It allows a lot of communication with us and also our senior tribe members. You'll get answers very, very quickly, and it's absolutely free. So jump on Facebook, search for UMS Movement Mastermind and join now. Until next time, have a great day.